The only other place I looked for was in Washington State. I wanted to come to an up-and-coming region, and yeah, moved all the way to the other side of the world by myself 12 years ago. And then about 2 or 3 years into that, because I was going to a winemaking school down there doing a degree, I started bringing wines back here of my own. And slowly but surely, getting a distributor, bringing the wines out, and now we're in about 10 states. So things have really picked up over the last probably year and a half, 2 years especially. But it all started with Sauvignon Blanc, with that. And most of the Sauvignon Blancs you've had from New Zealand are from Marlborough. They're real crispy, acidic, real gooseberry, and highly tropical. This one is still pretty tropical, but it's a warmer climate up in Hawke's Bay. If you look at the back of the bottle, if you have any of it on the table, there's actually a little map of the North Island of New Zealand, and you can see Hawke's Bay on the east coast of the North Island. So mostly all the winery regions are along the east coast of the two islands of New Zealand, because the weather comes across from the Tasman Sea, all the rain. You think of New Zealand, you think of Lord of the Rings and cool climate, rainforest type of stuff. But we have super dry weather on the East Coast. So Marlborough's blocked by mountains, Nelson, all these great little wine regions. And Hawke's Bay, where I live, is the oldest and I think the best wine region in the country. We do a lot of things really well, including Sauvignon Blanc. And the next wine you're going to have, which is Viognier, which is a kind of a spicy, aromatic white. Goes really good with seafood. I'm really excited to have it with some mussels tonight. But the Sauvignon Blanc's, what we have most of around New Jersey and Pennsylvania and New York and places like that. But it's cool that we're getting a good look at pretty much all the wines tonight. So what I'm going to do is stand up again before the Rosé and the Pinot Noir, and then I'll stand up again and introduce the Malbecs. So tonight is the night to ask all the silly questions. If you have any, I'll pop around. We've got a nice intimate setting here. And I don't know, anything else? Any other questions? Oh yeah, sorry, I always forget. So the name Decibel, the Decibel comes from, because I worked in the music industry for about 6 or 7 years in my early 20s. And my initials are, my name's Daniel Brennan, DB. And eventually became sort of Decibel Dan, and then I called the wine man. So that's kind of my handle on Twitter now and everything like that. So, and of course, all the parallels between the wine industry and the music industry, and sort of art and craft of that. So it just all seemed to fit. And I like the word because you can pronounce it. There's so many winemakers. Right. It's going to be tough enough to pronounce Viognier, I think. But Decibel, at least we can start with. Yeah, that's pretty good. We got a little bit of warmed up now.
So what did you do in the music? What did you do in the music industry?
Yes.
Oh, I managed a band, so I do play guitar.
Which band?
They're called Seeking Homer. They're from the Bronx. I worked with a couple other bands, and we basically toured North America for about 6 years. Back right about when all the free downloading started in the early 2000s. So they're a bit older than me, and that sort of stuff sort of ruined indie music for a while. The 5 of us could make a living just touring constantly, but and selling CDs. And pretty much overnight, they were like, "Hey, we downloaded everything last night." So thanks. So I always joke around that I got into the wine industry because you can't download a bottle of wine for free. So,
if you have any old CDs, you could sell them at your wine.
Yeah. We probably got a lot of extra ones somewhere else. Well, let's just have a good time, and I'm staying the night in Stone Harbor, so let's have a good time. Cheers.
Thank you. Thanks.
Sort of Eastern French varietals, cool climate whites have made their way to New Zealand over the years, and they pair so well with seafood, which we're 2 islands, so that's great, and a lot of Asian food and spicy food, which we have a huge influence, being in Oceania and that part of the world. So I love this wine. We make a lot of different Viogniers in the region. Not a lot gets exported. A little bit goes around the country, but a lot of people sell Viognier in their tasting rooms. And it always does well. You just got to put it in their glass and go, yeah, what was that Viognier?
The V1.
Yeah, the V1, yeah. And they go, yeah, you want the Viognier, here's the case, take it, And so it's really cool to have this wine in America and get it mixed in. But from what I understand, I think it's the state grape of Virginia, because they grow it. It's got kind of thick skins. It's really good.
And Trump actually owns a
like it is up here. A little bit easier
No
to grow
politics.
down there. That's all right, guys. Get wild up here. So there are people in Washington, D.C. who know how to pronounce this name. So so that helps.
That's how you learn how
And
to say the word.
it's really oily, so all that comes from the pulp and the skins. And so what we do when we pick this wine, I try to pick it a little earlier. Otherwise, this wine is notoriously high alcohol. When the alcohols are too high, it almost tastes soapy and it's not really good with food. So we pick it a little earlier and then we leave it in the truck on the skins for 8 or 9 hours. And then we press it and that gives it all that oiliness and spice and everything. That all comes from the skins and the pulp. You know? So, enjoy. Cheers. Oh, and it's very floral. That's why the label has the lady with her head exploding with flowers. I will say about the labels, is a good friend of mine, Raka Karatiani. He's a local Māori guy, which is the native people of New Zealand. He's about 6'4", and he surfs every morning in the cold Pacific, so he can't really hear me because his ears are like so fused together.
I do like that label.
But we sit down and we talk about each wine, and then he comes up with a concept. So you can take a guess about which each wine means. I think the Sauvignon Blanc is kind of more possibly generic to the decibel range, but all the other wines have a real meaning. Starting with the Viognier, which is, you're trying to be sort of prim and proper, and then your head explodes in flowers. So that's our floral lady this Viognier. All right, cheers. The bonus is if you finish the bottle, the label changes color because it's actually a clear label. A nice colorful this evening. And honestly, that's the point of rosé, right? To enjoy it and drink it. Very versatile with food. Obviously, it's become hugely popular in the last 5 years. So our importer in the U.S. actually asked if we had some rosé. I said, well, I can make some. And my Pinot Noir, which we'll have next, is from Martinborough. It's about 3 hours south of Hawke's Bay. Much cooler. Again, going back to the original story, it's why I ended up in New Zealand to make Pinot Noir. Well, this is Pinot Noir from Hawke's Bay, and I don't really like Hawke's Bay Pinot that much. So perfect for rosé. So and it really is. Pinot Noir rosés are really nice because they're kind of soft up front, and then they finish. I think this wine's actually got some complexity. It's from the same vineyard site as the Sauvignon Blanc, so it's got that limey chalkiness in the mid palate that I really like, and it's a good food wine. I drink this wine a lot at home, actually. Out of all the wines, it's kind of probably the most versatile. You can drink it with white wine stuff or barbecue and things like that. So I actually don't remember what the pairing is, but I'm sure it's perfect.
Goat cheese.
Australian goats.
Cheese. Australian.
What is the alcohol?
It's 13. Yeah, 13%. So again, not too high. We can pick it early, so we have nice, fresh flavors, more acid, things like that. It's got a hint of residual sugar. It's technically what would be called a dry wine because it's under 5 grams residual sugar. But that also helps with that softness up front, and then it finishes nice and I think chalky and limey. It's a little different from rosé. There's a lot of Provence style rosés that are kind of there and gone, and that's cool too. That's just fun summer wine. There's really sweet ones, which I don't like at all. And this is in between that one. It's definitely closer to the really dry style, but I think it has some character, so I like it. Cheers. Because I fell in love specifically with Martinborough Pinot Noir, and I found the winemaking school in Hawke's Bay, and I, probably very foolishly thought, oh, it looks like it's pretty close to Martinborough. It's about a 3-hour drive, and I now do that drive like almost once a week. So I'm always back and forth, checking all my barrels down there and everything. But Martinborough is really famous. It's kind of like a mini Burgundy. It's never going to get any bigger. It's all around this little town named after this guy John Martin, and it's an old river bed that used to go through there. So it's nice gravelly soils, right over the mountain ranges from Wellington. So if you look at the bottom part of New Zealand, you'll see those mountain ranges I talked about, and but they're really close. You see the mountains just right off in the distance, and the clouds sort of come back and forth, and it's great. I call it the perfect Pinot pocket. You sort of go down in this little valley, and the clouds, it's pretty warm there, but the clouds back and forth, you get a lot of shading. Because Pinot, it can't be too cold or too hot. That's why I was joking around about the Pinot Noir Rosé. It's a bit warm in Hawke's Bay for really world-class Pinot. But these are the oldest Pinot region in New Zealand. And we're really known for that dark, savory, kind of mushroomy, Really good with duck, which is, this is a great pairing for this. And this is, there's some really nice New World New Zealand fruit on this wine, but it's really about those savory notes. This wine, I think it's the 2014, which has got some great age on it. Also put a bit of the stems in with it, the ferments on this, so it gets that little bit of stemmy quality as well. And we just try to build these ones to last. And I don't know, any questions?
How old are the vines?
So these particular vines were planted in 1992. I now work with a different vineyard that was planted in the early 2000s, but both of those vineyards are run organically. They're certified organic. This one we actually produce biodynamically, going back to Rudolf Steiner, who I was talking before, who started this biodynamic farming. If you want to talk about that, we'll have to sit down after this with a glass of whiskey and tell you that whole story. That's way too long. What's that?
Is the whiskey included in 35?
Oh, you guys know the bars. Okay, now for something very, very different. We usually get about a 70% hit rate with this wine, but I can say first of all, you're very lucky to have this wine tonight because most of it is flying off the shelves in Brooklyn right now. It's a very trendy wine. So,
I missed that one.
So I've kind of become known as like a guy who loves to make Malbec in Hawke's Bay amongst my peers. I make 3 different Malbecs now, including this one. And in 2017, an old friend of mine, a guy who actually went to school with me when I did the winemaking degree, he's an older guy who's a dairy farmer, bought a vineyard. He sells most of his fruit to some of the big companies, and he's like, I got this little block of Malbec. Do you want it? And I said, sure. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with it, but I'll take it because of the next wine we have is all from this real special appellation called the Giblet Gravels that I'll talk about. This is from the appellation next to it. And so brought the wine in, it was looking good, made it normal like I would, about 3 to 4 weeks on skins, pressed it was in the tank, and I was thinking, what the hell am I going to do with this stuff? I don't even have barrels for it. And I tasted it in June, and I went, you know what, I drink this right now. So we bottled it that year in about August, I think, and then we released it. We kind of had to get the labels sorted and all that, because I knew, I was like, this isn't a Decibel wine, this is something different. And I always wanted to name a wine after my grandmother's maiden name, which is Junta. They were farmers, they had immigrated from Sicily. They're actually at farms in like Vineland and places like that. And I thought this would be a cool table wine and a good name for a table wine. Plus there's like a little double meaning because of the word junta, like a little takeover by this weird wine. And so, and I Googled, the day I came up with it, or I thought about naming it again, I was like, let me Google it. I actually don't know what the name means. And it means a nice addition to the family. A name you would give a newborn son. I said, oh, this is a nice addition to the Decibel wine family. And so the first year we made about 150 cases, and it ticked away. We did something cheeky and released it on Nouveau Wine Day in November, even though it's like 6 months behind the actual Nouveau Day. And it kind of ticked away and sold out by like February. In 18 we made it again, and we released it in September, and it sold out in about 2 months. And then this year I made 5 times as much as the first year, and sourced from 4 different little blocks from around the Bridgepaw Triangle, which is the same place where the Viognier was from. And it's basically all committed, so it came right off. We bottled in early July, and half of it went straight off here to America. So this is a 2019. So this is the first wine I had in bottle from this past vintage. Typically that could be Sauvignon Blanc or Rosé or something like that, but this is the first wine from 2019 I bottled. So
when did you bottle it?
Most people in the room, this might be the first 2019 you're thinking of, especially considering in California most of it hasn't even been picked yet. Yeah, exactly.
How old was your older friend who introduced you to this?
My older friend, just 90, 100 years old.
Based on what Americans know about Malbec. How does this differ? What is this like?
So yeah, and we'll see it in the next Malbec too. We're much fresher. I mean, this one's really crunchy. We call this kind of crunchy wine. But if you've had Argentine Malbec, this wine and the next wine will be nothing like that. They're much more fresh and got more acid drive to them. I think better food wines because they can hold up to steaks, but they can also, this one some people serve chilled and drink it in the summertime. It's a lot more like Cahors Malbec, which is the French style. It's a lot more, we're kind of a little more elegant, but it's still right. We're very, very lucky in New Zealand that we can achieve physiological ripeness while maintaining great acid and not high alcohol. So a lot of other regions in the world, they have to let the fruit hang out for really long. They ended up getting really high alcohols to get those bright flavors. But we have really long growing seasons. We have a lot of friends who they'll go to harvest in Australia. They'll be finished picking by the end of January. Come to a winery in New Zealand, and they're not finished picking until the end of April. So we have a much longer growing season. It's a little cooler, but it's just nice and long, and it's really good for the grapes. So long growing season, short maturation for this one. So bottled young.
Question, over the season, as the grapes grow, do you find a difference in the quality of the grapes?
Oh yeah. You wouldn't eat it, early in the season. It's really hard, like peas, and then it goes through, raisin color change. It gets nice and soft. That's when we really start tasting them and plump, and we're looking at the seeds and how brown they're getting, the separation between the pulp and the juice. We're kind of looking to get perfect ripeness while still being fresh and crunchy.
Like Beaujolais Nouveau starts deteriorating almost from the time you put it in the bottle.
Yeah, I just tasted our 17 a couple weeks ago, and it tastes fine. It tastes great. Yeah,
It stays for a while.
It's a
does it
different
mature and
grade
get better?
too. They're like Gamay, they pick it. I think, it's not their fault, but I think with Beaujolais Nouveau, they're so under pressure to get that out by the third week in November. I don't have that. I just kind of do whatever we want with it. And I actually do make this like a regular red wine up front. It sits on skins for quite a while, and then I press it off to tank, and then we start getting it ready for bottle. So the earlier the better we can get it out. I mean, I think this year we hit the mark pretty good by bottling early July. We kind of have it ready for here for September. That seems like a good formula to do. This wine's been a lot of fun to do. And Grandma Stella Junta would be very good.
Very nice. I love it.
Tastings at our home, sometimes we have lunches, and we do actually end this one with chocolate and this Malbec, so that's good. I hope it's a nice edgy chocolate, this edgy wine. So, kind of like I said before, as far as Malbecs that you've had, it's be a different style of Malbec because it's a lot more fresher style, but this one is aged in oak for 15 months to sometimes 18 months. Use all neutral oak on this one, so there's no new oak. A lot of large format, so 500, 600 liter barrels, big barrels. I love big barrels, so good question. So bigger barrels, less contact with the oak, less oak influence on the wine itself, but great, you get these great big lots of wines that get this great micro-oxidation in, so they soften really nice, and they're, if you go to like Barolo, for instance, they have 5,000 liter oak casks. Someday I'm going to get those, I promise. But the really important thing about this wine is it's from the Giblet gravel, so it's a really, really cool story about an appellation in the world. It's the only true soil appellation in the whole world. No latitude or longitude, or there's hills over here, so it stops right here. In 1862, there was a river there, and there was an earthquake and a flood, and the river took a shorter path to the ocean. And you can see this on all the maps of Hawke's Bay, and it just left this real rocky soil. It's just all rocks. I have an old soil map in my living room in our house, and it says useless land, unfertile there. And I always joke around, it's like, you can't put sheep on it in New Zealand, and it's useless land. But But it was. There was nothing there. They had a drag strip there, so there's some vineyards that they joke around they could still smell petrol in the wines. And they had a quarry. They were going to quarry because it's just all rocks, very deep, free-draining rock soils. And these three guys basically fought the council to not let the land get quarried, starting in the 80s, going into the 90s. Basically, by the end of the 90s, early 2000s, it's become the most expensive land in New Zealand. So it's all vineyard sites now, all premium red wines are grown there. It's a bit of Chardonnay grown in there, a little bit of Viognier, stuff like that, but mostly it's all for Syrah and Bordeaux varietals, Malbec, Cab Franc, Cab Sav, and Merlot. And if you're a Hawke's Bay winery, you probably have a few rows from the Giblet Gravels. And what I'm trying to achieve with this wine, I actually do a reserve version of Malbec called Testify. Maybe we'll talk about that another day. Or get over that class of whiskey. And that's more elegant and aged for almost 2 years in oak, and it does have new oak in it and everything. What I'm really trying to do with this wine is show those gravelly soils. So I think, to me, it's got all those Malbec aromatics of violets and plums and things like that. But on the palate, it's bony, stony, edgy. There's people in the Giblet Gravels that have tasting rooms and they rub two stones together and they let you smell it. I didn't bring any Giblet Gravel stones with me from New Zealand.
You brought your alliteration.
Yes, I think that's a great point actually. Giblet Gravels, alliterations, they do a great job with their marketing. So. I also want to say the food tonight has been phenomenal.
Should I go get the chef? I'll go get the chef.
Thank you.
Go up with them. Woo, go.
Good job, guys. Good job. Come on. Speak. How was everything good?
Yes, it's really good. It's really
Thank you
good.
guys for coming.
Oh, it was fabulous. Thank you.
Yes, get up there.
Yeah, this is a cool one. This is one of my favorite ones we've done so far, for sure.
We did. We were just
Debbie.
Over a glass of
First time I met him.
Patricia.
Introduced us to
Bring
Debbie.
Paul out.
We got the wines down.
And Kyle.
That was the other thing I want to say about this place is well marketed. Very great job because there's people
Thank
in
you.
New Zealand talking about.
Thank
oh,
you.
This 330 must be like.
So now you are
People in New Zealand are talking about this place.
They're probably talking about the food too, because they.
Yeah.
I've been posting it.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful. It's been wonderful.